far better king than the one leading this army.
Is he, though, Achilles? Is he? You know what? Let's dig into this a bit. But first, hello! My name is Garvin, and this is a holiday bonus video where instead of doing something obvious, like talking about something holiday-themed, like most of YouTube is already doing, I'm going to chatter about different elements of the Trojan War, because that is what lives in my brain rent-free. So in last year's video, I went to before the beginning of the Trojan War to look at Agamemnon and Menelaus, to ask why were they even allowed into Sparta so that Menelaus could court Helen? Because when they show up, they are dispossessed princes with no throne and an accusation of murdering their own father leveled against them. However, for this video, we're going to go over to the other side to look at two men whose decisions ensured the inevitability of the Trojan War and thus the city's destruction. And if you're looking at writing about Troy, you need to get a grip on what's going on with these two. Now, the first of these men is obvious, Prince Paris, and we'll get to my hot take on him in a minute. But let's talk about the other guy first, Paris's father, King Priam. King Priam is mostly known for that scene in the Iliad where he humbles himself before Achilles after Achilles kills his son Hector. However, there is more to Priam's story. To start with, he was actually the youngest son of his father, King Laomedon of Troy. And much like many of the other men in his family, King Laomedon made some terrible decisions. Let me boil this down. Apollo and Poseidon had been exiled to Earth by Zeus. No, we're not going to get into why because that's a whole nother story. And King Laomedon offered them employment. Apollo cared for his flocks and made them healthy and fertile with his mere presence, while Poseidon built strong city walls for him. However, when they asked for the agreed-upon payment, the king laughed in their faces. Why does anyone think this is a good idea? Even if they're exiled, they're still deities. I keep running into this in ancient myth. This is not a good idea. The narrative backs me up on this, because Apollo and Poseidon, once they're released from their exile, turn around and punish Troy for its insolence. Apollo by releasing a plague, and Poseidon sticking to his tried and true giant sea monster. And to be fair to Poseidon, it is hard to beat a classic like that. Both gods made it very clear that they would only relent if the city sacrificed a maiden to the monster, also sticking to the tried and true formula here. The princess Hesiodonide was chosen for this, and this is where Hercules shows up, because just as the princess is being chained naked to a rock to be sacrificed to the monster, Hercules shows up and goes, "Hey, y'all have some magic horses you got from Zeus." And that is a whole nother story that I'm not going to get into. If you want to know more about that, leave a comment and I'll do a follow-up video. But for now, we're sticking with this. So Hercules makes the deal of saving the princess in exchange for magic horses. And Hercules does his part. He kills that monster dead, returns the princess home, and then looks over to her father and goes, "So about those horses." And this is where the king proves that he hasn't learned a damn thing, because he points at Hercules, laughs, and says no, and what are you going to do about it? Well, Hercules goes home to Greece, gathers an army, comes back, tears Troy down, kills this king and all of his sons except for Priam, who is ransomed by his sister Hesiodonide, giving Hercules a veil made out of gold in exchange for King Priam's life. And Hercules then decides to remind me just how big of a jerk he can be by enslaving Hesiodonide and giving her to his companion Telamon as a prize, and King Priam would never see his poor sister ever again. So Priam is, despite being the youngest son, now the king of Troy and the last free member of the royal family, and he devotes his life to rebuilding Troy. He makes it safer, stronger, and wealthier than it ever was, either under his father or his grandfather. He has 50 sons and 50 daughters. Some people have enough kids to make a small team. Priam has enough kids to make a small league. And one of those kids was the next man we have to talk about, Prince Paris. Now, the first thing to know is that while Paris was a son of King Priam, he wasn't raised in Troy, and he didn't grow up a prince. So, according to the stories, when Paris was born, his mother had a vision that if this baby lived, Troy would die. The city, I mean. Now, one bad dream isn't enough to kill your own kid, so they consulted oracles and priests and various other specialists, and all of them came back saying, yeah, the dream's right. If you keep this kid alive, your city is going to catch it. King Priam, probably standing there staring down at a baby, decides he can't do it. Killing a baby is too big of an ask for him, especially after all he's lost on his own family. So he calls over one of his most trusted servants, his head herdsman, turns around and says, hey, I have a big favor to ask. I need you to kill a baby. The herdsman takes the child out to the wilderness, but he doesn't do the thing himself because killing a baby is a big ask. So he just abandons the child in the wilderness thinking, well, that should be the end of that story. Only baby Paris is adopted by a she-bear, and when the herdsman comes back in a couple of days and finds this baby being cared for by a bear, he decides that the gods have spoken and the baby needs to live. So he takes Paris in as his own and raises him as his own son. And this isn't in any of the myths, this is just me. I like to think that the bears kept visiting Paris in secret when he was a child and taught him different things, and you'll find out why I like to think that in a moment. And as Paris grew up, he grew up to be one of the faster, stronger, wiser kids on the mountain, and he started to engage in various heroics, including confronting and defeating a group of cattle thieves with his bare hands.
I apologize for nothing.
These truly old-fashioned heroics got him some attention, and he ended up marrying the nymph Oenone. So Paris now has a reputation as a hero, is married to an immortal, ever-young woman with magical powers, and according to the story, they would have a son together, so that means he has a family. He also gets property, and among this property is a magnificent prize bull that has been winning all the fights in the region. And Paris brags about this, which might be his fatal mistake, because the god of war Ares hears about this, and instead of deciding that this was too petty to bother with, Ares goes, what? I could totally beat this bull, and shapeshifts into a bull to fight this other bull in a competition that Paris is judging. And because Paris is, at this point, an honest man, he admits that Ares is the clear winner and proceeds to award him a golden crown. Ares is very impressed by this, and remembers Paris when Zeus is put on the spot by 3 goddesses demanding to know who the fairest was. So Ares makes a suggestion to dear old dad that will get Zeus off the hook. This led to the judgment of Paris, where he was confronted by 3 goddesses, Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite, all demanding he choose who the most beautiful goddess was. And during the contest, all 3 of them offered him bribes. Hera offered him dominion over the earth, Athena offered to make him the smartest, strongest, and most wise commander who ever lived, and Aphrodite offered him the most beautiful woman in the world. And married Prince Paris, with a son, decided that was his bride. And the reason I'm pounding on this drum is when I was growing up, I saw a lot of pop culture treatments of Paris that turned him into this romantic lead, often, propping him up as Helen's true love as opposed to this older, more brutish Menelaus. And I'm not trying to defend Menelaus here, the man that Helen of Sparta actually chose of her own free will without needing a goddess tampering with her head. But here's my hot spicy take. Paris is not a good guy, and he is not Helen's true love. First of all, he abandons his wife and son to do this, not to find out the truth of his birth, not to pursue a noble quest or anything along that lines, but because a goddess told him, hey, if you ditch your family, I'll get you with the most beautiful woman in the world. Aphrodite led him to Troy and revealed his heritage to him, so that he could get to Sparta and steal Helen. There are several different versions of this story that I've seen. In some, Paris actually sneaks into Sparta, kidnaps Helen, and steals valuables from the palace. But most of them, Prince Paris shows up as a diplomat for the city of Troy, is welcomed as a guest, and when Menelaus has to leave to attend a family funeral, he goes to Prince Paris and says, "Hey, I'm very sorry about this, but this won't wait, so please, stay in my city, consider yourself my personal guest, and if there's anything you need, please let us know." Prince Paris repays this trust and kindness by taking his wife, stealing from the city treasury, although he was kind enough to leave behind Helen's 6-year-old daughter Hermione. By the way, Harry Potter fans, why don't I have this crossover yet? Come on guys, get on it. But my point is, none of this was driven by true love, because when Paris made the decision to take Helen, he didn't know anything about her except he thought she was hot. And he had to know this decision was going to lead to people dying. But he decided having the most beautiful woman in the world was more important than those consequences. And that's why I'm going to argue that no, he doesn't deserve to be a romantic male lead. His true characterization is someone who abandons his family to pursue vanity. And he's not much of a hero. Or at the very least, he was a hero, but by the point we get to this point in his life, he's not what a 21st American would call a hero anymore. But circling back to King Priam, because he gets the final word in this. You see, when the Greeks showed up, they tried diplomacy first. And in all honesty, from what I've read, they didn't ask for much. They didn't ask for Prince Paris to be punished for breaking guest right. They didn't ask for concessions or tribute. They said, just give us back Helen, give us back the stuff you stole from the Spartan treasury, and we'll forget this ever happened. We'll just call it youthful high spirits, we'll call it shenanigans, and we'll let it go. King Priam is staring down the armed might of the entire Greek world, with all of his advisors and the city elders of Troy telling him, hey, this is a great deal, and he should take it. King Priam looks the Greeks in the eye and says he would only hand everything back if his sister was returned to him. Speaking on a personal level, that's perfectly understandable. It had to hurt to lose all his brothers and to go through his life knowing that his sister was the property of one of the men responsible for that. But Priam isn't just a man, he's a king. He is responsible for the fate of every living soul in Troy, and he is gambling with their lives and the fate of his nation, a nation that's already been raised once by a Greek army, with this demand. And this demand will cost him all of his children, and will see his city and his country utterly destroyed, his allies ruined, and it will end in his violent murder by Achilles' son. But that's a video in of itself. I can't be too angry with King Priam, considering that he paid the ultimate price for his decision, but it is this decision that makes the war and everything that comes from it inevitable. As much as I have mixed feelings about King Priam, because I can understand his position as a man, even though I think as a king he should have put Troy first, I have no such mixed feelings about his son, Paris. That dude is a family-abandoning bag of dicks, and he kind of deserves what he gets in the story. But I'm going to ask you guys something. Do you think I'm being too hard on King Priam? Was he a good king? Or did he slip up here and let his personal feelings destroy his country? You tell me. Now, if I was to write a version of this story, and I wouldn't be the first person to do so, I would have to dig into this to try and find a way to not only make it believable, but interesting. Maybe what's driving Paris here is he finally realizes what it means to be married to someone who's going to remain ageless and powerful while you age and wither away. And maybe it twists something in him, so he flees because he can't face this. But his pride demands that if he's going to give up his wife and his son, that he's going to replace them with a human wife that everyone will envy him for just as much. King Priam's own struggles are a bit deeper in my view and really worth delving into. Imagine the struggles he went through to rebuild Troy. Imagine everything he goes through just to see it all come crashing down again. And knowing that his decisions played a part in it. And I have to wonder, as he is sitting there in the temple, hearing the sack of Troy, and knowing that death is coming for him, did he curse himself? Did he curse Paris? Did he curse Helen? Or did he just curse those damn Greek city burners? It's on that somber and maybe kind of unfestive note that I think it's time to stop this video. I appreciate you sitting through all my strange thoughts about this part of the Trojan War, folks. And let me just say, I hope you're enjoying your holidays. I hope you're surrounded by friends and family. And I hope you join me in January when I return. But until then, I just want to say, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and as always, keep reading.